Other thing of note, yeah. So I joined Chip and Ironicus on their podcast, Dogs Must Die, a Jojo podcast, to talk about the end of Stone Ocean. They just wrapped up with the finale because Stone Ocean is as we know it finishes off this chunk of JoJo, and we just kind of had a fun little chat about what the was happening, and that is the most JoJo ass moment in the animated series so far, is the way that part 6 ends. So I can understand the desire to call in someone to maybe go like, hey, do you understand what the has happened there? And I kind of went, no, but I have ideas.
It went really fast.
Yes. It went very, very quickly. And so that was a fun little bit to do. And yeah, obviously, to that note, like finishing off Stone Ocean as well, it was really interesting because, so have you guys finished part 6?
I have
JoJo?
not.
No? Okay. All right.
I have only seen part 1 and 2.
Okay. No worries. Well, that's okay. I won't get into it too much, but I'll just say that something I was really worried about, or not even worried about. I was expecting. There's a huge like momentum shift that occurs with part 6 of JoJo that I remember reading. I remember being very confused by, and I remember feeling, depressed by. Basically, I felt really sad about it, and I remember it took a while to kind of like have discussions and read things online and kind of go over that part a few more times, and over the years it kind of was something where I was like, okay, I see, and I think I get a better version of what happened here and what this was about. And then the more you look into it and the more people point out things that you might have missed thematically and such, there's some really great stuff that's happening there. So part 6 has like, one of my favorite protagonists, one of my favorite antagonists, one of my favorite settings. It's got like so much that I love, and then it's got like some parts that I hate. It's had my favorite stand in it, right? Survivor, as I've mentioned before, but it also just has this like, right, it has this lull in pace moment that occurs that's real like oof, and then there's just a third act that is batshit. And going over it now, watching it animated, it's so interesting because I was like curious to see how the world would kind of receive this, and watching it with Punch Mom, I remember the feeling I felt with each page turn. It felt like time was slower because you're moving at your own reading pace, and then like everything that you took in, like you digested it more. But when that happens in the span of like 2 episodes that are compressing 3 chapters per episode, so each chapter is about 10 minutes long, like you barely feel some of those beats before you're on to the next. And it's so interesting because like the thing that I felt, like there almost wasn't time to process it. For anyone who's familiar, they're almost like it moves so quickly, which, like is just the nature of animation. And this part, they could have took their time and went longer with it. But, the 38 episodes is what they've been kind of aiming for with other parts and all that. In the end, too, you combine that change of pace with the binge drop, which we've talked about in the past, and how that kind of killed the momentum of this part.
Oh, you mean how I have yet to watch anything from the second part because I didn't realize when it was out, and by the time it was out, everyone's talking about it because it was months ago.
There you go, right? And the same vibe, like talking on Dogs Must Die, same thing. Like they felt the same way. Everyone in the fan base that kind of went into this looking for that next part felt it. Like the hype just gets killed, and we've been over this in previous weeks, so I don't want to just.
Dude, I would wake up early to fucking get the new episode the fucking day that it came out every single time for 5 fucking seasons,
right?
And we get to part 6, I'm like, oh, did it come out?
Bop, bop, bop.
No? Yes?
Right? So that momentum killer fucking sucks. And as we know, and we've been over this, but I just bring it up again to say that this time around, it's especially weird because even if that was not happening, the pacing would have been so accelerated and nuts as this ended. And this just adds a layer of like, oh my God, you really don't have a chance to feel any of these little like little beats happening, you know, because you're just on to the next. Like, if you think about like, well, no, I wouldn't even get into the end of Stardust Crusaders, but just, you know, each of these parts of JoJo, every part of JoJo, the end just starts throwing shit real quick. Like, powers start changing, the setting, the world, what's happening, the stakes, everything starts
I really want to finish this up. I want to move on to the next one. I want to fly to Hawaii and chill.
Or whatever. Well, before that, actually, we got other things to do. Let's get on old Bessie over here. Start picking at your nails. God, I don't know what they're gonna do. Anyway, so all this to say, just like 6 animated, the ending doesn't hit. It doesn't hurt as much because of how fast it goes, and you're just kind of left with the emotional tones, which overall, you know, it are to the positive, but like, when you read it back in the day, there was this real slow, bitter sweetness to it that you're left with, you know, a real like melancholy, but like, okay, yeah, I get it, you know, we got here, the journey's over. And that just kind of blows right by, you know. Anyways, it's an interesting thing to note, and I thought that people were gonna head into a dark age of JoJo after this, but it seems like no, not quite. But shout outs to David Production as well, because like, you know, they as they bring this part to a close and they kind of like wrap up the promise of the first Sonochino Sadame intro, the first thing you see is Jolene, you know, the promise to do at least 6 parts of this thing. They did it, you know, and they gave it the proper send off. And like, I was talking to Reggie about, like, we were like, because he just watched Berserk 97 for the first time, and he's read it, but like, just watching it and you're like, yeah, could this ever happen, you know? And I'm like, well, you have to realize that Berserk had its shot then, and that was, you know, old, but it was a good show. And then they had those great movies, and then you had 2016, which we don't fucking talk about. Nope. And the problem is, it doesn't matter how awesome the story is. You need a team like David Production that's willing to dedicate 20 years of their life to this project. It's an insane thing to ask a super talented studio to just work on one thing for the next decade, and then some, right? To take us into part 9, that's another 10. So Berserk would need that level of dedication from some amazing talented studio out there to finally do it justice, you know?
I'm just thinking, as you're describing this, of like, you know, the JoJo originally started in 2012, the anime adaptation. And I'm just thinking of like 2010, 2011, walking up to a bunch of dudes at AV Productions, like, listen, want an animation team to take care of the JoJo franchise? We'll do part 1, and then part 1 does well, we'll do all of them, right? So are you folks ready to sit down and work on this for 20 years so that in 2024 everyone on 2chan can yell at you about how ugly the CG horses are?
I can't wait. I'll get my pencil right away. Yeah. You know, it is definitely like a wild thing to ask of a talented studio. And, you know, Berserk absolutely deserves it and more. It deserves all the accolades and all the, you know, the dedication to getting that shit right. But you just have to realize what you're asking of the team that has to take that project on, you know? Anyways, so go check it out. Dogs Must Die. I think it's episode 90. Yeah. fun little chat
I was
about.
gonna ask, how many adaptations of the Golden Age arc are there? Like, is that just it?
Two? I was
Is
it
there
two?
only two?
Yeah, not counting video games.
Okay.
Well, video games don't tend to even touch on the Golden Age much because it's all human beings.
Well, the Buso game did,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Did it?
I want to say
Yeah,
it
I
did.
forgot about that game because
Yeah.
that game is trash.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played
But-
it for like an hour and was like, oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna press these same buttons over and over again.
You know the deal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.